About security at local houses of worship. How can you feel safe when celebrating your faith? And the University of South Florida has a new president, finally. Find out more about who he is and his goals for the university. And the weather is great for being outdoors right now. Why not check out a state park? We've got an update from a local couple working their way through all of them. Yes, every single state park in Florida. How many state parks have you been to? Is there a little hidden gem that's your favorite? Tell us about it. Call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters at WUSF.org. All this and more on Florida Matters Live and Local. But first, the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Police in Los Angeles have arrested the son of Hollywood director Rob Reiner after two people were found dead inside Reiner's home in Brentwood, California. Steve Futterman reports authorities responded to the residence Sunday afternoon and discovered the bodies.
According to Sheriff's Department records, Nick Reiner, the 32-year-old son of Rob Reiner, is in police custody. He was arrested Sunday night, hours after his father and mother were found dead in their Brentwood, California home. Now, he is being held on $4 million bail, suggesting that these are very serious charges. All the official records say right now is that he's being held on suspicion of a felony. It does not say that he's being held in connection with the killings of his parents, but one can assume that that is a strong possibility. For NPR News, I'm Steve Futterman in Los Angeles.
Police in Rhode Island are releasing a man detained as a person of interest in a deadly shooting at Brown University over the weekend. Ian Donis from Ocean State Media reports 2 people were killed in the attack.
Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Nerona was among the officials announcing the setback in the case. He says it's not unusual for an investigation to change course after early evidence doesn't check out. Nerona vows that investigators will find the gunman, even if the timing is uncertain.
This could happen very quickly, but it could take some time. And so I'm going to ask the public to be patient with us as we continue to work through the facts.
He's going to do a sound check for both of you guys.
Okay.
Right now.
Check 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is Mark. I'll be talking at this level. At this
Nancy,
level.
You go.
Check, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Hello? check.
Raising questions about why civilians have access to such weapons.
If you're not a farmer, if you're not involved in agriculture, why do you need these massive weapons that put the public in danger and make life dangerous?
Proposals under review include limits on how many firearms an individual can own and stricter ongoing license reviews. The shooting unfolded Sunday evening as thousands gathered along the beach for a Hanukkah by the Sea event marking the start of the Jewish festival. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. Florida's Surgeon General wants to end school mandates for 4 vaccines in the name of medical freedom. As WUSF's Carrie Sheridan reports, one vaccine that could become optional prevents a dangerous form of meningitis.
It's called Haemophilus influenza type B, or Hib. It's caused by a bacteria spread by coughing or sneezing. Dr. Paul Robinson is a pediatrician in Tallahassee who's been treating children for more than 40 years.
Hib didn't cause mild illness. It caused children to die.
He spoke at a Florida Department of Health workshop where state leaders are considering making the vaccine optional. Robinson says early in his career, as many as 20% of children he treated with Hib died from sepsis or severe infections of the brain and spinal cord.
and many survivors were left with deafness, paralysis, or lifelong neurologic injury.
A vaccine was introduced in the late 1980s, and since then, Hib has become rare. But vaccine rates are declining, and the disease is already resurfacing, says Ihab Kanawi, a pediatrician in Panama City.
Just in the past 6 months, we've had 2 patients in the ICU with Hib. One child unfortunately succumbed at 4 months of age, no vaccines. 1 month ago, I was on call, and another patient also came into the ICU. 2.5-year-old, never vaccinated. Hib, again, abscesses in the brain, seizures, brain dead. Quote, unquote, mother's words, please give my child every vaccine you can.
Many doctors spoke at the workshop, urging the state not to change rules that require vaccines against Hib and 3 other diseases for daycares and schools. Carrie Sheridan, WUSF 89.7 News.
The Tampa Bay Sports Commission has named Lannis Robinson as its new executive director. He's currently the director of athletics for Hillsborough County Public Schools. He takes over for Rob Higgins, who left to become University of South Florida's first CEO of athletics. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
Listener support powers WUSF. Funding also comes from Seitenbacher, with a new web shop. Healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com. Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher.
Connect to the greater Tampa Bay region first thing weekday mornings with Wake Up Call from WUSF. Local news, events info, culture, and more. Sign up for your Wake Up Call today at WUSF.org.
You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local, broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Sky Lebron, filling in for Matthew Petty. The University of South Florida officially has a new president. It's the school's 9th. The USF Board of Trustees confirmed Moez Limeam a while back, but it was made officially official Friday with a vote from the State Board of Governors. Limeam has been president of the University of North Florida, home of the Ospreys, since 2022. Before that, he was a Bull. For a decade, he led USF's Muma College of Business. Once the vote was over, Limeam seemed pretty pumped to finally have the job secured.
I'm truly just honored, humbled, energized, and fully aware of the responsibility this confirmation carries.
So what do you want to know about USF's new leader? Did you cross paths with him when he worked at the university before? Call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. WUSF's Nancy Guan and Mark Schreiner have been covering this story for a while, and they're here with us on Florida Matters Live and Local. Thank you both for stopping by. Wanted to start with you, Nancy, just asking a little bit of background on Moez Limeam, where's he coming from, and what did he most recently do at UNF?
Yeah, so Limeam has served as the president of the University of North Florida since 2022. Before that, he was a dean at USF. But to focus on his UNF role, he's made some notable accomplishments there. For one, this fall's enrollment is the highest it's ever been since the school's history, and they also broke the record in the freshman retention rate. And just to give some more background on Limeam, in his town halls before his confirmation, he never fails to mention how his upbringing shaped his passion for education. He grew up with modest means, he says, in the country of Tunisia, was one of 8 children. His father was an elementary school teacher, and he's even described before working by the light of an oil lamp. Moez says he was actually the first in his family to attend college. He came to the U.S. after winning a full-ride scholarship to the University of Minnesota, where he earned his MBA and PhD. After that, he went on to hold various academic roles in Quebec, Canada, Hong Kong, Switzerland, and then Arkansas. So he has a very varied background.
Truly, the full spectrum when you hit Arkansas. Mark, what's his experience when he was at USF? Because he has a pretty strong connection here.
Yeah, huge connection here, Sky. 10 years leading the USF Muma College of Business, which he did great success in terms of both graduation rates and job placement for students immediately afterwards, which was always been one of his focuses, as well as fundraising. I've interviewed him multiple times. The man is a very personable friendly guy, and he translates that to fundraising, raising $126 million for the university and the College of Business during that decade here. The big get was the $25 million from from Les Muma and his wife, and that led in 2014, $25 million at the time, the largest gift ever to the university, and that led to the change in the name of the college to Muma College of Business.
So I know overall this vote was a little bit delayed. This appeared to be on track about a month ago, but then the Florida Board of Governors pushed the meeting back. It ends up being scheduled on a Friday morning just before UNF's commencement. So LeMayem was on Zoom, and he was in graduation garb for UNF as he's accepting the presidency for USF. The entire meeting lasted like 15 minutes. Was this typical?
I was going to say, Nancy, you can speak more on it, but this was very unusual as someone who's followed these kinds of stories.
Well, MOAS was confirmed unanimously by the USF Board of Trustees in October, and the expectation from the community was that MOAS would be confirmed with the final stamp of approval from the Board of Governors in November. And that meeting was being held at the USF Morsani College of Business downtown, so it would have made sense in terms of, a ceremony or something like that. But evidently his confirmation got pushed back to December on Zoom. But when we reached out to university leaders, they said it was because the November agenda was full.
Yeah, I mean, so this past year or so, it's been kind of hard to confirm state university presidents, specifically in Florida. The University of Florida just recently had to reset their entire search after the Board of Governors voted down former University of Michigan President Santa Ono as its only nominee. How was LeMayem's selection any different?
I think because he's a known quantity for the university, it made the approval process, while delayed, easier. It was the idea that he is a known quantity to the University of South Florida. More importantly, he's a known quantity to the Board of Governors, having been at the University of North Florida for 3 years as president there. As I was saying, he's not going to get named to that position and then turned down for the USF position. I truly think that him going to UNF in 2022 was to give him kind of, lack of a better term, seasoning to figure out how he would work as a president. UNF, again, one of the 12 public universities in Florida, but certainly a lot smaller and a lot less prestige than USF has.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with WUSF's Nancy Guan and Mark Schreiner about the selection of the University of South Florida's 9th president, Moaz LeMayem. If you've got a question about him, call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Just want to jump into now, this is an interesting landscape he'll be entering. Nancy, what are some of the first big challenges that he's going to be facing now as he takes over as president?
Yeah, like you said, it's kind of a tumultuous time for universities, and by that logic, to be a university leader. Colleges are dealing with decreased state and federal funding, and one of USF's goals is to increase that funding to $1 billion. So it'll be a challenge. There's also been crackdowns on what can be taught or said on campus or in classrooms. Before LeMayem's confirmation, USF leaders did question him on how he would deal with some of these issues. And LeMayem emphasized that, universities have always been a marketplace of ideas, that no one should be afraid to express themselves, but that freedom of expression comes with responsibilities too. But, in short, he's going to have to balance these state and federal policies with what's best for students and faculty. And, the real tests are going to be during his tenure.
Yeah, and Sky, the big thing as well is one that really just came up for the first time last week formally when Governor DeSantis, in his proposed budget for next year, proposed transferring USF's Sarasota Manatee campus over to New College of Florida. This was an idea that was floated last year, got tremendous pushback from the community, and Moaz is stepping into the kind of role where Will Weatherford, the Board of Trustees chair for USF, said this is an issue that's going to be decided by the legislature, and the university doesn't control the outcome. MOAS is going to have to try to keep the legislature happy at the same time as keeping the community, faculty, staff, students. It's a very balanced issue that he's going to have to face right out of the gate on that one. And small secondary thing that I think is going to be worth watching is USF's attempt to get its athletic program into one of the Power Four conferences. The new football stadium is scheduled to open in 2027. Yep. You're going to want to be in a power conference to make that happen. And a university president plays a role in that.
Sounds easy.
Don't envy him at all.
I'm being sarcastic. I guess the big thing here is, when does he officially start? I know that this process can be a little bit lengthy as you get the old president out, you get the new president in. How's that whole process going to work out?
In this case, because of the nature of coming from University of North Florida to University of South Florida, it's going to be a little bit of a balance act. The idea is that the chairs of the USF Board of Trustees, the University of North Florida Board of Trustees, and the chair of the Board of Governors will all have to agree on a date. Most likely, I would see this happening sometime in January or early February, because they need to name an interim president at UNF who will succeed him. My best bet would be that interim president will be the front runner to become the president of the University of North Florida. The absolute last date that's possible is March 31st, which is the date that current USF President Real Law's contract expires.
And Nancy, with the minute that we have left, what are the numbers looking like? Do we have any idea of what this compensation package will be for LeMahieu?
Yeah, so his compensation package still has to be voted on. But what the contract says right now is that his base salary is about $400K more than the outgoing president, Ria Laws, around $1.2 million. And in total, he could earn about $2 million with the combination of his base salary and performance-based bonuses.
So next steps, if I'm getting this right, are just making sure that the two transitions happen pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, seamlessly. And again, like I said, because of the idea that he is at UNF, it becomes a little bit easier. I do know that he has spoken about the idea that Tampa has become home to him, and he's excited about coming home.
Yeah, and that long drive now going from Jacksonville to Tampa, it's got to be a pretty happy drive, though, at least for him and his family. We've been talking to WUSF's Nancy Guan and Mark Schreiner, who have been covering the appointment of Moaz LeMahieu as the next president of USF, and I'm sure it's probably going to continue for some time. This isn't just the end of that story.
No, and as I said, the challenges that he's facing coming in, and Ria Law during her 4.5 years has done a number of things advancing the university, formally getting it into the American Association of Universities. As Nancy said, increasing that research funding. It's sitting right in the neighborhood of $750 million right now. USF has that goal to get that up to $1 billion, and it's going to be a challenge.
A big billion. We've been talking to WUSF's Nancy Guan and Mark Schreiner, who have been covering the appointment of Moaz LeMahieu as the next president of USF. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up this weekend, a deadly shooting took place in Australia. We're talking to the local Jewish community about safety in places of worship. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. More to come after this.
All is calm. The Christmas truce of 1914 returns to Oslo Theater. World War I. A German soldier sets down his rifle and steps into no man's land, singing Silent Night. Running through December 19th. Tickets at oslorep.org.
This holiday season, give a fact for WUSF and help protect independent journalism for everyone in our community. Your $20 a month powers the fact-based and local reporting you count on every day. Please make your gift right now at WUSF.org. Thanks.
I'm Scott Tong from Public Radio's midday news magazine Here and Now. We bring you all the news that happens between the morning headlines and the afternoon wrap-up, plus conversations with authors and artists, stories that affect you, maybe a story about you. So join us for NPR's Midday News Magazine, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Sky Lebron. Another deadly attack on Jewish people celebrating a holiday has happened. This time, at least 15 died at a Hanukkah celebration on a beach festival in Sydney, Australia. Just a few months ago in Manchester, England, an attack on a Yom Kippur service left 2 people dead. Jews across the U.S. and greater Tampa Bay area are no strangers to the need for security when they gather. It's been a common practice for decades to have law enforcement outside their houses of worship. The reaction to what officials already are calling a terrorist attack has been strong across our communities. Here's a statement from Maxine Kaufman. She's the executive director of the Jewish Federation of Florida's Gulf Coast. The essence of the holiday is the fight of the Maccabees, a small but determined minority to stand up against the forces that wanted to force our people to abandon our faith. When we bless the Hanukkah candles, we remind ourselves that these events that happened in that ancient time, but also that could happen today. She says that Jews are not afraid. To provide more perspective on this tragedy, we're joined today by Rabbi Philip Weintraub from the congregation B'nai Israel of St. Petersburg, and Joseph Probasco from the Tampa Jewish Community Centers of Federation and Federation Board of Directors. I wanted to start, we could start with Rabbi Philip. Does that statement that you just heard from Maxine Kaufman, does it at all reflect what you've heard from your family, your friends, and the congregations that you serve?
Absolutely. But Hanukkah is, we lit the first candle last night, and my favorite part is seeing pictures from friends and family all around the world celebrating Hanukkah, bringing light in a time of darkness. And, sorry, I shut that up. Bringing joy in times of challenge. The miracle of Hanukkah is not only the miracle of restoring the temple, rededicating the temple, that's the word Hanukkah. Hanukkah means dedication. But it was the blessing that there was light to create, that we could be secure in our homes, to celebrate our holidays, to live our lives. And unfortunately, that security is poked and prodded and attacked in all sorts of different ways, generation after generation. At Passover, we say in every generation, there was someone to rise up to try to harm the Jewish people, unfortunately. And thank God, every generation, we have found ways of surviving through Jewish life and Jewish learning and continuing to build a better world.
Joseph, how has your congregation, is there anything that your congregation is going to be doing to honor those that were killed in Australia? Sadly, it seems like it's something that has had to been done multiple times because there's been multiple attacks.
So presently, this is all still
in the works,
and
yeah.
So to the extent that a formal memorial will be planned, I'm not certain on that yet, but we did put out a statement to our community along the lines of what Rabbi Weintraub just shared, which is this is it's a holiday of light. And I think most importantly we had our City of Tampa menorah lighting last night. And it's a time when a lot of the non-Jewish community, particularly in the Western countries in America and Australia, and I would assume the UK is similar, where the non-Jewish community, this is the holiday to bond with the Jewish community. It's Hanukkah. It's Passover is a very important holiday for us, the holidays, of course, but Hanukkah brings out the non-Jewish community like none of the other holidays. And so I think when you look at what happened on Bondi Beach, when you look at what, thankfully doesn't happen here in Tampa, it's a celebration of Jews and non-Jews about really bringing light to our community.
Joe, we spoke with you just a few months ago on Florida Matters Live and Local on this show. You told us how your organization doesn't publicize the location of a gathering in advance as a precaution. I mean, how does this just kind of highlight that, the necessity of that?
Well, I think two things. One, with the exception of this event, I'm not sure that we're doing any events right now in open areas for this exact reason. You can't secure it. You can't ask law enforcement to secure an open area like that. I think separately, one of the data points I've been sharing is with respect to the Jewish communal system in the United States of America is approaching spending $1 billion on its own security. $1 billion.
Wow.
And I'm sure if you ask the rabbi to go to his services on Friday night, you're probably walking through metal detectors. There's probably law enforcement outside of his synagogue, just like every synagogue. I would imagine Australia is the same. I would imagine the UK is the same. And that's just a reality that I think our children and our families have become accustomed to.
You know, we also spoke with Christian leaders about the need to feel safe while worshiping. Christopher Harris is with Crossover Church in Tampa.
I think that by and large, houses of worships have been very high trust and low security kinds of places. And I think the day of that being a reality is past. And so churches have to be good stewards, have to be good managers, and have to recognize the reality of where we are. And so we can have, I believe, high hospitality and yet also have high security.
Rabbi Philip Weintraub, have you received words of support at all since the events this weekend from other faith leaders?
Yeah, I've gotten a couple calls from pastors that I have relationships with who have shared messages of sympathy and also, of strength that, having some knowledge of the Bible and Jewish tradition, they, were aware of Hanukkah and reminding me of this mission of sharing that light. In the Jewish tradition, one of the greatest mitzvah of Hanukkah is to persum hanes, to publicize the miracle, to share with the world around us the blessing of Hanukkah. Jews are not evangelicals. We do not go try to convert everyone. We want you to be the best, whatever your faith is. But we want to share the blessings of this holiday, of the possibilities. Joe just mentioned about security. And, I think I looked at our budget, about 10% of our budget is security. If I could erase that and use that money to do joyful programming, to bring musicians in, to have concerts, to share our teachings in so many other ways, I'd much rather do that than spend it on security systems and police officers and all those other things. I saw an article a few years back, I think from Deborah Lipstadt, who professor at Emory and was an anti-Semitism chair with the UN, from ambassador from the United States. And she said she was in, I think it was New Hampshire, and saw a church with all its doors open on a Sunday morning. And she thought it was so beautiful, and she realized why it felt so strange from her, because there is no Jewish congregation, there's no synagogue in this country where you would walk up on a Saturday morning and see the door to the sanctuary open, the door to the front open, the door to the back open. You have one secured entrance, and it's a very different way. It's hard to create that feeling of welcoming when you have a police officer standing there.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking with Rabbi Philip Weintraub and with Congregation B'nai Israel of St. Petersburg. Thank you so much. And Joseph Provasco with the Tampa Jewish Community Centers and Federation Board of Directors. Thank you both for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Coming up, you're going to want to get to your closest state park after this one. We're speaking to a couple who's journeying to see all of them. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. More to come after this.
This is the season when philanthropy and financial planning come together. Community Foundation Tampa Bay helps you maximize your year-end charitable giving while making a lasting impact. Learn more at cftampabay.org.
It feels like we're constantly being tracked and spied on these days. Governments and companies are doing the tracking. But why? We search for answers in a series that lifts the lid on surveillance. That's next time on The World.
On the next Fresh Air, Zadie Smith. Her critically acclaimed best-selling first novel, White Teeth, was published when she was 25 in the year 2000. Now she's 50 and is looking at life as a middle-aged woman and is thinking about the current generation gaps, including between millennials and Gen Xers. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Sky Lebron. Last week on the show, you heard how Florida state parks are being shortchanged when it comes to necessary park renovations. The parks need about $760 million to repair rundown and outdated facilities. Regardless, our state parks offer a physical connection to nature, spaces where you can commune with loved ones and wildlife, and maybe it's a place for a little break when you just road raged for the fourth time this week. To learn a little bit more about the parks, here's one local couple that's made it their mission to visit every state park in Florida. Just wild. Wilma Norton and Peter Couture are here today to tell us more about what completing this mission has been like. How about you? Have you been to any state parks, any hidden gems in the state we should know about? Let us know. 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. And you can send us a message at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Wilma and Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
You know, I want to start with you, Wilma. Now, you both stopped by Florida Matters a year ago, and you had been to over half of the state parks at that point. You even added a few more right after the episode. So, all right, give me the update. How many parks are left?
We have 44 of the 175 left. I got my map out this morning and double-checked my math.
Yeah, thank you for fact-checking that. I appreciate it.
The old journalist in me had to fact-check. So since we were here last, I think we have done about 30 or 40 more of the Florida state parks.
So once again, for people that maybe weren't able to listen to that last time that you guys spoke here, what started this journey to visit all the state parks?
Well, we always have joked that we were not outdoor people, that we hiked around theme parks, not around parks. And then during the pandemic, when all of us were feeling shut in and stressed, we decided, we need to just get outside, go to a county park. We started venturing out a little bit, and we discovered a few of our local state parks. And somewhere along the line, I picked up a map of all 175 and started coloring in the ones that we had been to. And suddenly sort of this mission was born to visit all of them. So it's been about four and a half years, and we're getting close. 2026, we should be finished.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a big – and what – so you started what you said about 5 years ago now, in the middle of the pandemic, kind of near the back end tail?
In the early in the pandemic. So probably about January of 21 is when we really got started.
Okay. And would you call this an addiction at this point? I mean, how often are you thinking about something like this? I could ask you, Pete.
Well, I don't think it's an addiction, but it's a great pleasure. And so we do think about it a lot, especially Wilma. You give her a list and she's happy. But I tell everyone it's been a revelation for me as someone who grew up in Florida. I grew up in St. Petersburg and was never an outdoors person. I'm sorry I waited till later in life to become one, but
it's okay. I forgive you.
Thank you. It's just been an amazing way to go on a retreat, really, from everyday life, and to see there are things in state parks that you can see that you can't see anywhere else. And that's why I think they're a precious resource for the state.
You know, you bring up an interesting point. I've always thought, and other people might have always thought, you've been to a couple of the state parks, you kind of have seen them all. But I know that I'm ignorant in that way. How much variation do you get when you're visiting all these state parks across the state?
It's incredible. I'm shaking my head no, like people can see me.
Yeah, I felt bad about that.
When you were saying that. I don't think people realize how vastly different so much of Florida is. And for us, this has been a way to systematically explore the state where we have lived for his whole life and most of my life. We had never been to the Panhandle. We'd been to Tallahassee, but we had never been to the Panhandle. And I always say when we pulled into the parking lot at Henderson Beach State Park near Destin and walked up over the dune, it took my breath away. And I said, oh, now I know why they call it the Emerald Coast. The water is green. You know, I've spent all this time here on the Gulf. And in the same way, there have been so many of these parks that we walk into, and it's like, who knew this existed? Devil's Millhopper in
Yeah,
Gainesville.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and Florida Caverns State Park.
So I wanted to mention that one. That's one of my favorite parks I've ever been to, hands down, because they give you tours underground of Florida. It just kind of feels surreal that even exists in the state, you know?
And I grew up in Kentucky, so I've been to Mammoth Cave. And to think that that kind of connection in what is my adopted state is there was just really kind of magical.
What's the most recent parks you guys have been to?
We were up in kind of between Gainesville and Palatka. We spent a weekend at Goldhead Branch State Park, and that is one that's a little off the beaten path. We spent the weekend in this little cabin that was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s and 40s. So it's 3 miles off the highway. It was quiet. We stepped out at night, and there are cranes that we can hear and owls. There were deer grazing in our yard.
It's mystical.
It really is, and quiet. I think those of us who spend most of our time in the city have forgotten what quiet is like.
And what the sky looks like. Yeah.
That is very true. We're speaking with Wilma Norton and Peter Couture and their mission to visit all the state parks in Florida. If you've got a favorite park or park activity, let us know. Call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Or message us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. I have a question for both of you. What is your favorite state park that both of you have visited? But you're not allowed to say the same one.
Okay.
You go first.
Well, I was asked this question last time we visited, and I said Jonathan Dickinson State Park, and it is.
Where's that at?
It is in South Florida.
Jupiter
area, yes. And because it has a real variety of habitats and activities that you can do. But, you know, I was thinking about that on the way over here this morning, that if I was asked that question, I might throw a couple others out there. I might do a top 3 rather than a favorite, because it's really hard to settle on one. But Myakka River is wonderful because I like gators, and you're guaranteed to see gators in Myakka. I recommend that if you have friends or family from out of state who want to see an alligator. And Florida Caverns, which is one of the newer ones, like we mentioned, that we've been to, was just amazing because it's so unlike a lot of the other parks in Florida. So I would have to throw those two out there as some of my favorites as well.
Okay, you kind of cheated, but I'll let you do that. You
Thank
get away
you.
with a couple. You get how about?
Well, there's a lot of them.
That is true.
I was going to say we have 131 to choose from in our list. I usually say Anastasia State Park outside of St. Augustine. And part of the reason that I love that one so much is you can do a 3-mile hike and hit beach, and you can hike over dunes, you can go through forest. It's just really varied. But we did one recently on this trip up toward Gainesville, the Olustee Battlefield State Park.
And that's like a Civil War
Yeah.
memorial and monument, right?
Yeah, and so we walked in, and there's this wide kind of pine needle lined path that winds, I think, a couple miles through the pines. And it's so peaceful. But then there are these wonderful historical markers that describe the battle there. And it really puts you in that mindset. It's almost like visiting when we visited Gettysburg or some of those sorts of places. It makes me think about what I would do in those situations and the kinds of experiences that have formed our country and our state.
Yeah, and specifically that region of like north central Florida as
Right.
well. And it also shows you, it's kind of in your backyard in many ways. How do you keep track of everywhere that you're going? I mean, you said there's more than 150 parks to check out. I mean, how are you staying on top of all this?
Well, I've got a map and a highlighter, and I highlight each one of them, and I've sort of made a list. And to finish this, it really does require a little bit of planning. So when we go like to Jupiter for a long weekend, I will plot, here are the 6 parks that are nearby, and Google Maps and I just sort of plot
Became
it
best
out.
friends.
Yeah. And I keep a running list, sort of a diary of the dates we went, and our sort of rules we've set for ourselves is that we have to get out of the car, we have to take a walk or do some activity, and we take a picture. And that's one of the things that's come from this for us too, is we shortly into this realized, oh, we really like photography, and that's something we can do together. And we bought a camera with a longer lens for getting birds and spiders and those kinds of things. So,
and we need hiking shoes.
Right.
So there's never been the mistake of, we actually already went to this park.
No.
Wow. Impressive stuff. You know, we just got that State Department of Environmental Protection report that shows that Florida needs about $760 million to upgrade park facilities, along with other necessary improvements. Is that something you guys have seen when you've been out there? Do you see room for improvement in a lot of these spots?
I think so. It's often routine maintenance, but one of the things we've noticed is, and I don't think that maybe a lot of us think about this, but when there's a storm or a hurricane, it really does affect the state parks a lot. And it requires a lot of work and maintenance in a lot of cases to restore some of the natural habitat in those areas. So that's a big thing that we've noticed. We've seen storm damage in some of the parks.
Let's go to the phones now. We have Michelle, who loves state parks. Michelle, you're on Florida Matters Live and Local.
Hi there. I just wanted to share Eureka Springs Park. I'm not sure if it's actually a state park technically, but it's in Tampa. It's nearby. A Russian immigrant who was a botanist and dealt with fish locally shared his wealth of knowledge and plants and left it in preservation for others to attend. And then you mentioned Palaca, Florida. One of my favorite state parks growing up was the ravines out there, Riviera Ravines.
Yes.
Gorgeous wildlife, gorgeous plants, lots of fun memories. There's tons of them, but those are my two faves for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate it. I want to say, I don't think Eureka, I don't think that park is a state park, but man, it's a beauty. I've been there a couple times with a couple friends, and it's been an awesome time. Just a great place to have like the deepest discussion you've ever had. And then on top of that, over in Palaca, it sounded like you guys reacted to that last one that she mentioned.
Yeah, Ravine Gardens is one of those that you walk in and it's like, oh, wow. You know, we're so accustomed to Florida being flat. And so then to go somewhere like Ravine Gardens where you go down steps into the ravine and you walk, and we were happy we had brought our hiking shoes and our hiking poles there. But you see different topography and all of that. And her mentioning Eureka Springs is another thing that I think we started out and still are working on checking off the state parks. But this has sparked in us this love of nature and preserves and all of those kinds of things in general. So there are sometimes on a weekend where we will say, why don't we go down to the celery fields outside of Sarasota? We had never been there. Or to Corkscrew Swamp down near Naples. Those are not officially state parks, but the State Park Quest has spurred us to do that.
You know, this seems like the type of things that people would really love to follow. Is there any way that people can follow your journey, or is it just kind of just between you two?
We post about it on our own Instagram. We've talked about, should we do a separate Instagram account? I just retired a few months ago. I've toyed with the idea of turning this into a book or something, but maybe we should. Maybe that's my retirement project.
I definitely think you could get a good following on that. What's the next park? What's the very next park after this one? Is there a plan?
Well, I think two of the ones that are high on the list that we haven't done, which is crazy, are right in our own backyard. We have not been to Caladesi Island because it had been closed for a long time after hurricane damage. And we haven't been to Egmont Key right off of St. Pete Beach. So during the holidays, those will probably be kind of high on the list.
I'd been to Egmont Key when I was a kid, but that doesn't count.
Well, we've been speaking with Wilma Norton and Peter Couture about their mission to visit all the state parks in Florida. Thank you both for the time.
Thank you, Sky.
You.
Coming up, urban farming has been on the rise in the Tampa Bay region. It helps a lot since food prices have been ticking up, too. We'll take a look at one of those spots in Pasco County. You're listening to Florida Matters Live and Local. More to come after this.
Celtic Woman returns to the Billheimer Capitol Theater March 25th. Experience the timeless Celtic traditions and amazing music. Don't miss Celtic Woman, March 25th. Tickets on sale now at rutheckerdhall.com.
I'm Robin Young. The CDC has rolled back the recommendation that all newborns get the hepatitis B vaccination. John David Ellis says he wishes he'd had that shot as an infant. He was born a year before the 1991 universal recommendation and found out years later he'd contracted the virus as a toddler. His message next time, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7. Mike drove his family's long school bus-colored station wagon, the Enterprise, to college. It was a gas guzzler, but it got the job done. If your old car has lived a good long life but is ready to go to that parking lot in the sky, donate it to WUSF. That way, you can help WUSF get the job done by bringing fact-based news to your community. Find out more at WUSF.org.
Make plans like a local insider. Discover your city and find out what's new on artsaccessflorida.org/explore-local. You'll find a map there to show you this city's local gems. And thank you to our sponsor, Community Foundation, Tampa Bay.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Sky Lebron, filling in for Matthew Petty this week. It's obvious food prices are pretty high right now. It's hard to afford almost anything. But people are finding alternative ways to get their nutrition. The human race will prevail. More and more people are starting to grow their own fruits and veggies in their yards or even on their balconies. People are turning to urban farming or micro farming, where they grow food on a small plot of land and distribute it in their communities. That's what Tanner Johnson is doing in West Pasco County. He spoke with WUSF's Daylina Miller about his front yard farm in Newport Richey.
I'm feeding soil and I'm feeding people. It's like the most wholesome thing you can do as a living.
I love that, feeding soil and feeding people. On his half-acre farm, Johnson grows food year-round. We're talking collard greens, kale, radishes. Sounded tasty. He also sells that produce to local restaurants through a co-op, which gets that food directly to local residents. People who use SNAP benefits to cover food costs can buy here as well, like Amanda Zaborek. She says without a program like this, she couldn't afford fresh food for her family.
I mean, honestly, to think about it feels devastating.
So do you grow your own food? What does your backyard or micro farm look like, and what do you grow? Call 813-755-6562 to tell us more about it. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us a message at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Catherine Campbell is a professor at the University of Florida. She's also a specialist in community food systems, and she's with us right now. Catherine, what up? Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You know, for people who have never seen something like this in their communities, can you paint us a little bit of a picture of what urban farming looks like?
Well, it's a great question because urban farming can look like a lot of different things. It can be everything from, small scale gardens that people grow for members of the community to full scale commercial working farms. People grow in the ground. They can grow in greenhouses or in hydroponic towers. So there are a lot of different varieties, and it just fits into whatever the local context is and sort of what the interest of the farmer is.
So if I'm growing like some basil and some mint and maybe just a little bit more, like just some spices on my porch balcony from my apartment, would that still be considered urban farming at that point?
That would be considered urban agriculture, yeah. There's a long history in the U.S. of urban farming from the sort of foundations about 100 years ago to where now, with increasing cost of food and interest in community resilience, people are getting back into growing their own food.
So have you seen the number of communities taking part in this grow, as we're talking about growing food? Have you seen this community grow in itself?
Yeah, there's been a huge uptick in interest, particularly here in Florida. As we're a rapidly urbanizing state, there's becoming a lot of interest in thinking about how we can fit food into our communities. Florida has agriculture as the second or third largest industry. And as we are starting to do more land development, people are doing a lot more small scale food production right in cities or on the outside of cities.
So you study community food systems. Does this growth of people participating in micro farming and urban farming, does that at all make your job more exciting? Does it make it a little bit more interesting when you're seeing that population rise?
Yeah, it definitely does. And so the idea of food systems, it's a little complicated, but really it's just about the connections between where food is produced and where it's consumed. And I look at its production and consumption on a community level. And so urban farming fits perfectly into that, where we've got food being grown locally by people who live here and it's grown for members of the community.
Is there a particular part of Florida that you study, or is it the entire state? Have you seen it growing in a particular part of the state?
Yeah, so I do study the whole state, and we have robust urban agriculture in basically every major metropolitan area. But where you are in Pasco County, as well as Pinellas, and Hillsborough have been really forward thinking in terms of adopting supportive policies and adopting programs that have really helped it flourish and be successful, both for commercial farmers as well as helping community members access healthy food.
That's really interesting because particularly for Pinellas County, you think about the geographic constraints, right? It's on a peninsula on the west side of Florida, right next to the Gulf. So with that, there's only so much land you could work with. So I guess it makes sense that urban farming has seen a real rise there where the options are kind of limited,
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, without the support of the community and supportive policies, it really wouldn't be possible. It takes a little bit of strategic thinking and planning to figure out how you can successfully grow food in an area that's urbanized and developed.
We're talking with Catherine Campbell, a professor at the University of Florida. She's a specialist in community food systems. If you want to talk about your micro or backyard farm in an urban area, call 813-755-6562. Catherine, do you do any urban farming yourself as somebody that studies this often? And if so, what's your favorite thing to grow?
Oh, well, I love growing herbs because it's really easy. I also like growing, one of the things that's really great about growing food in Florida is that we can grow virtually year round, unlike up north where you're limited to the summer months. And so I like to do, broccoli and kale in the winter. Then in the spring, I'll put in some tomatoes. And so I like having the option to go back and harvest right from my backyard things that I want to eat.
How have they turned out so far?
I typically pretty well. And so I was a little late getting my garden in this fall, but we're making progress.
That's honestly what I'm most concerned about is I'm like so excited for these tomatoes. These are going to be the best tomato. And then I taste them and they don't turn out good.
Well, you could reach out to Cooperative Extension. UF Extension can help you with your home gardening needs.
Wow. Oh, thank you for that. We can talk a little bit about that in a couple minutes, just where people can go for information. Just a couple other questions, though. I mean, are there any regulations that you have to follow when it comes to, could you potentially get in trouble for growing a few rows of cabbage in your front yard or any other type of growing?
Yeah, so what I always recommend to people is really to dig into your local policies. So that's one of the things that makes this both a challenge and an opportunity is that in Florida, we're a home rule state. So basically each county and municipality gets to make its own rules for how they want to handle things like this. And so, if a resident is interested, they should reach out to their local government, or they could go to MuniCode to look up their local policies to see what they're allowed to do in their zoning classifications. And if you don't have a policy on the books, it can be a great opportunity to get some community support and see if you could maybe get a policy adopted to make things like that possible.
I guess, is it something that changes very much from county to county? Based off of studying this, have you seen big differences in the regulations?
Yes, huge differences,
Oh, wow.
surprisingly. I'm working on a study now where we're going through and classifying all of the policies around the state. And we see huge variation in terms of, sort of level of detail and anticipation of, potential opportunities where, as I mentioned, in your area, there are a lot of supportive policies that really make it much easier if somebody wants to explore this, either from a growing food for themselves at home kind of perspective or developing a commercial farming operation. There are a lot of opportunities there that are being supported directly by having those policies in place.
How important is it to cut out the middleman when finding affordable groceries? And I guess as somebody that studies this, again, I keep on harping on that. But is there a noticeable difference in that price tag?
Yeah, I mean, so there are benefits on both sides, both on the part of the farmer and on the part of the consumer. So there's something called the food dollar that's put out by USDA. I wish I could show it to your listeners, but it basically shows you how much of any dollar you spend on food goes to a farmer. In a traditional case, it's only about 14 cents makes it back to the farmer. But if you're buying directly from a local farmer, that whole food dollar goes to your local farmer. And so that goes back into your community to support that community resilience. And so there's a benefit directly, to the farms in your local community. But then on the consumer side, you're getting food that's fresher, which means it will last longer. It has higher nutrient content. You're potentially getting things that are, heirloom varieties that are bred for flavor, not bred for sort of stability and traveling across the country and sitting in a grocery store. So there are a lot of benefits of growing, purchasing locally, and buying locally.
So let's say you just sold a couple people in this talk that you and I had just right now. They want to start themselves, but it can kind of be like daunting as well. It could be a scary thing to think, hey, I'm going to start growing my own food here in the greater Tampa Bay region. So where do they go to start?
Well, the one thing I would say, because you mentioned tomatoes, don't start with tomatoes. They're one of the hardest things to grow in Florida. Everybody wants to, but it's difficult. And I speak from experience on that. But if you want information, UF IFAS Extension has an office in every single county, and they have resources available online. You can Google Ask IFAS, and we've got resources on how to grow different kinds of crops. I have a new series of publications that have come out on the sort of health and nutrition benefits of different kinds of crops that you could grow here in Florida. And so those are a lot of, we do educational programs directly for Florida residents. And so I think UF IFAS Extension is a great way to kind of get your feet wet and explore and see what you might be interested in doing.
We've been speaking to Catherine Campbell. She studies community food systems at the University of Florida. Catherine, thank you so much for the time.
All right. Thanks for having me.
And that's our show for today. Coming up tomorrow, oil drilling and the Florida legislators that are currently against it. And we'll chat about some bowl games coming up over the holidays. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace. Lily Belcher is our intern. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Galvin. Jackson composes the music, that great music you hear right now. Warren Buckles handled the video today. Subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcasts and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Sky Lebron. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll catch you here tomorrow.
Sarasota Ballet presents Masters of Movement, accompanied by the Sarasota Orchestra, featuring Balanchine's Divertimento No. 15, Mozartiana, and more, December 19th and 20th at the Sarasota Opera House. Tickets at sarasotaballet.org.
Governments, companies, and even the Vatican are using secret software to track people they view as threats, from ordinary folks to very powerful people.
You see heads of state, you see award-winning journalists, you see human rights activists, you see leaders in industry.
But why? We search for